Welcome, everyone. It is the last day of July 2026, and we are back. It's been a little while. Schedule's a little frantic. Sorry about that. No one really to blame, but it feels good to be back and sit down, and we're going to talk through some stuff and some things. Right, Brian?
Yeah, I like talking about things more than stuff, if I'm being honest. But good evening, everyone. Glad to be back and glad we were able to meet on the final day of July. I don't know if there's some sort of special holiday, but just ready to get into it and figure some stuff out. So, David, why don't you start us off? What are we looking at? What's been going on with you the last couple of weeks?
Just busy, man.
I feel that.
Had a tandem of bachelor parties last weekend.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know, right? So it's probably the gaining experience with age and trying to navigate, as we get older and staying out late and trying to relive the glory days and all that. But I had Thursday and Friday off at work last week, and I got done on Wednesday and just had this feeling of, damn, I really wish I would have just taken time off to just not do anything, because this is even more work. And it was fun. It was well worth it, but getting up the next day, you got to pack, you got to make sure you got everything, who's bringing what do we need, where are we staying?
Yeah.
That whole communicative process. So
that whole communicating thing, right?
Yeah. So I want to touch on that a bit, communication with other people, but also communicating with myself. So one of the feelings that I had, when I did get clock out Wednesday of last week, I was like, man, I really wish I would have just took time off and didn't do anything. It's, that hindsight of, I really just need a break to refresh and just not do anything. And I had been that night specifically, up kind of late trying to make sure I remembered everything was taken care of before having to, or getting to go on that trip. But I feel like communication with other people and communicating things, like especially at work, I think it's pretty easy, comes with a job, it's kind of structured, but the communication outside of that, some of the more abstract conversations, or even communicating with myself, like, why do I not, I get to a certain point and I get to a feeling like, oh, I feel like I'm, doing too much, like I'm out of touch, I'm out of balance.
Right.
And, even talked to my therapist today about this whole thing. So it's not bad in any ways. It's just like, man, if I could really, get more in touch with myself and understanding some of this and having, more of the balance during the day, because I still have all the techniques of, how am I feeling? How is the work going? Am I doing too much? Do I need to take a break? Do I need to, stand up, which I still do, get up from the desk quite a bit, walk around. But yeah. And, even this past week on Tuesday, I'd taken over someone else's work because they had left the company, and there's a report on Tuesday, which I'm going to make better, but it takes me like 3 or 4 hours to do, and cross-check, verify all the information's correct and all this. So
yeah,
I had been in the office about 12 hours and got up to leave, and I felt fine, but on the way home, I'm like, oh man, I'm really wore out. But that whole day I felt fine, felt great, and like, I got the energy, I'm gonna get through this. And then just kind of hit a wall. I'm like, where did this come from? I don't really understand it. And, kind of getting out of rhythm of, I was going to bed around like 10 p.m. I think that night I was up till, well past midnight, had to get up
Mm.
the next day. And, it was the day that we were going to be out late. So I was out late again, came back the next day. So had like, 6, 7 hours of sleep, um, those 2 days. And then last night was a little bit better, but yeah, just kind of, you know, I feel like I kind of thrash myself out of the balance that I've worked so hard to get into that, coming back to it takes time. Like I'm patient with myself to, get back on a good routine, but, we're really getting thrown through the loop. And again, talking to my therapist about it today of there's always going to be external variables. There's going to be things that affect you that you can't really control. Your son doesn't want to go to bed, so you're late to the podcast recording. The Wednesday night goes on longer than he thought it was going to. Still got to get up, still got to show up, still got to, do your work for the day. And, with Thursday and Friday off in a week, what do I have to get done? And of course, like the timing always matches up where someone's going to be people that almost never ask for things are suddenly asking for things.
Right.
So outside of that too, with the productivity and organizing and scheduling, time for myself to, how am I feeling this morning? What do I think I can tackle? What do I prioritize? What's, the most important things? What do I need to send communications out on and all that? So really I've done, over the years, I feel like it's been necessary and I've gotten better at it, but, the last couple of weeks have seemed like, I'm surviving, but not, it's a little too much outside of the locus of my control, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, spending all that time to build up the routine that you've had, and you felt sick, or felt and were successful doing it, right? And then all of a sudden, life comes at you kind of fast, and you got this couple bachelor parties and work related things, and then it feels like for me, I'll speak for myself and I say, it sometimes feels like the world's out to get you. Now, I know that's not true. um, and it's definitely hard to like get out of thinking of that mode. Like I feel like I have to like talk myself down, talk myself or build myself back up kind of thing sometimes, um, and best thing you can do for yourself is just as you're doing, just kind of give yourself a little grace and patience, as you are doing so. uh you know Great job there, but it's, yeah, I mean, now comes kind of the hard part of getting back into that schedule, and that's certainly not easy. You're coasting, and then you kind of get knocked down a peg or so, and maybe not able to or feel like you can take time for yourself, and kind of just um slow down and really breathe, right? So I when I get really stressed out, I sometimes will lash out at other people, or I've talked about it before, but it's like I have self sabotage in habits, especially when I get really stressed out. So, I slip all the time, but the thing that I have prided myself on is just getting back up on the horse and you know, moving forward. So the you know you've built a good, and like we talk about all the time, you've built a good foundation, so it's just getting back to the fundamentals of what you were doing before. And you'll hit that groove again, trust me.
Yeah. Well, I think in life we talk about the ebbs and flows and the uh, not so much necessary, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Things in life that pop up, things that get in the way, and
Things out of our control.
yeah, they're really just like hurdles, speed bumps, or what have you, and uh, putting in the extra effort to push through it, but not losing that sense of self, not losing um, the progress that you've made towards something, and kind of that realization and the understanding of it is outside of my control. There are things within my control, so that's the scope of what I need to focus on. Um, but really, just that same prioritization of focusing on what you can control when times are good and when times are bad, and kind of keeping that steady state going when things aren't so steady. It's kind of been difficult for me. Just kind of the continuation of where I'm at now, where do I want to go, how do I get there, and kind of the checklist each day to go through it. But yeah, it is just kind of like one of those times, and I think even me a few years ago would have thought, oh, this is never going to get better. What am I doing? But now it's kind of that, it's not apathy, but more so acceptance of the environment that I'm in and getting better and getting that experience and navigating it, which has been a good help. I think we kind of tie some things in our life to doing something that's not similar, but it kind of teaches you the same lesson. And
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think too with working with data or whatever it is, projects, your own personal journey. It's like, well, how do we quantify it? How do we have the data now? What do we do with it? And your life, like, well, I've identified this issue. Now, what do I do with it? And I think with talk about all the time, but with the coding boot camp, I just wanted to go out and start working. But oftentimes, you learn that that's not the best thing to do. There is time for alignment, scope, who's responsible for what, and then what steps do we take to be able to get there? How do we build from the bottom, and what do we kind of put on the bottom, or what do we prioritize first?
Right.
And in life, it's a little bit different with just different scales of things. Your own physical health, mental health, spirituality. Um, how do you interact with others, communicate with others? But at the same time, it's like, have that grace, have that understanding, and give yourself credit when credit's due, and criticize yourself when the criticism's due. I could definitely be doing this better, or, I was at this place and now I'm here. What do I do next? So maybe criticize isn't the best word, but just, look within yourself to see, like, I've identified that this is a specific thing that I want to get better at, and I have been on that road. Am I still on that road? Do I? What's the next step look like? Am I ready to take that next step? And we talk about it all the time, but those are kind of some of life's grander questions. Someone doesn't just wake up one day and decide to start running and never stop. There's some other stuff that gets in the way.
From that day on, I was running.
Yeah, besides Forrest, but
yeah, I really wish I could, I wish I was one of those people, like, I could probably name at least 3 or 4 people in high school. And, granted, I was in a class of about 200 kids, so we were like kind of on the smaller end for a high school class. But really, of that like 190 to 200 kids, only I could name 4 who knew what they were going to do from the time that they were in elementary school. You know, they said that they're going to do it, and they did it. Like, they just knew all the steps that they had to take, everything. They laid out everything in front of them, and these, to start at 4 or 5 years old, and now I'm 37. So, and all of those guys, of the 3 out of the 4 who are still alive, the fourth one unfortunately passed, but still got into the field that she wanted to, which was forensics. Um, but they're all in the field that they said they were going to be in. So I really genuinely wish I was in that. I do them less than 2.5% of people, less than 2% of people who knew what they were going to do from the very beginning. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I got out of high school. I didn't want to know when I got married. I didn't know what I wanted to do when, I was laid off, right? Twice. So, it's the experience that we build in the journey along the way, and gives us the fundamentals and the building blocks to understand of where we came from, how we deal with something, and maybe have the insight to do something differently. So, um, you know, and it's not to say that those people weren't battle tested, because obviously they were. They had to pass all their classes. They had to get through college. They had to work hard and get to the careers that they're in. Some of us take a longer journey. Some of us need to be more seasoned. Some of us need to make stupid decisions. Fuck up really badly to understand the scope of our maybe failures, and or just things that didn't necessarily go our way, and that we have to learn from them. So, and you know, folks can be kind of pragmatic like that, right? Like, they understand with what works. So, I guess where I'm going with my point is that I didn't know what I always wanted to do, and I'm still learning. I'm still learning to be a dad. I'm still learning to be a homeowner. Like, I have had to invest in more pea gravel than I wanted to, because we have chipmunks and all sorts of burrowing creatures in our neighborhood. So it's like, you find this, and I get absolutely freaked out because I hate dealing with rodents, but it is what it is. There's no one else. We're like in Gods and Generals. I think, was that the one with this Gettysburg? Maybe it was the one before that, but you know, Jeff Daniels' character says, "Gentlemen, you'll notice that there is no one to the left of us. We are the end of the line. They are going to come here and try and break us. Uh, we are that person. Even if we don't want to be. Um, you can be like some people who I know who are in their early 30s and are now just moving out of their, you know, parents' house with no sense of direction. They finally got into a union after kind of just like, and again, it's not to pass judgment on the people who live at home or anything like that, but it's just like, if, you know, if your goal is to just live at home and do nothing with it like that, then that's fine, but you're not going to break out of your shell. You're not going to learn anything. Whereas again, on the other side of that spectrum of the people who I knew I went to high school with, everyone has them of where they're like, valedictorian of their class, and they're, big, some giant corporate pharmaceutical sales, and they're making 6 figures and whatever. Point is, for everyone else here in the middle, we have a job to do. We may not know what that job is, but we have a responsibility to figure out what that is. It may come in 5 years, may come in 5 minutes, but we have to learn to better ourselves, even if it comes at the cost of failing. But you have to take that leap at some point. So I think this kind of turned on for me from going from, just trying to pass it on to like a motivational speech. And I throw that needle so poorly. So I apologize to our audience. But, it's kind of just like kept flowing. And it's like, if I could go back and do things differently, I don't know that I necessarily would, because, I wouldn't have the dark sense of humor that I would. I love that. I love everything about myself. I'm starting to learn to love everything about myself. But that took time. I was always so depressed. I would always get so hard on myself. And I still do, but I'm learning to be better. A friend asked me the other day, he's like, hey, how's it going? I haven't seen you in a while, and I see this person every 3 months if I'm lucky. Um, I said, normally I'll say, oh, this project at work, or, my wife, this, son, that, something to complain about. But I literally said, you know what? I got nothing to complain about for the first time in like my life. He goes, that's great. I was like, I know, it's a weird feeling, you know, not trying to turn a mountain into an anthill, or however that saying goes, but, you know, um,
A mountain out of a molehill.
yeah, there you go. Okay. And it was close. I always fuck up those old sayings. Make like a tree and get the fuck out. That's a popular one. But hey, I think I'm good on that one.
All right, yeah, you can put that one down. Let me pick it up.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
well, I think I was talking to a friend of mine too. And I think really, how you're raised and what you're for. Some people things just click. For other people, it's like their parents did it and they got um, a respect for it at an early age and thought that's what they wanted to do. And for some people, I think that holds true. If both your parents work in the medical field, then you become inundated with the medical field. And you have a good understanding of what to expect once you get into it. And that kind of helps bridge that pathway to get into it. Um, there's still people that, oh, my dad was a baker or something and didn't want me to be a baker or a welder or what have you.
Yeah.
But for some other people, it's like, if the job's realistic or the field's realistic for what you want to get into, as a kid, I wanted to be an architect. Or for some other people, it's like, oh, I want to be a astrophysicist or an astronaut or something, or professional sports player, pick insert sport here.
Right.
And yeah, just kind of the development is a little bit different. Or they went to a museum, or they went to, they went somewhere and something just clicked. And yeah, I think that's great that someone could figure that out early on, and they're just on that path from the get go, and it works out for them. And I think that's really incredible for them. But
Yep.
like you had mentioned, like 2% of people know exactly what they want to do, and most other people are like, well, it's discovery, it's figuring it out. And sometimes life gets in the way, and sometimes you thought that's what you wanted, and it doesn't end up being what you wanted, and you got to adapt and you have to overcome. But that's just life, you know. And even the people that maybe their career was set, they set out, and their career, it was kind of the same pathway each time, but outside of that, with uh, relationships, family things, where do you want to live, there's definitely a lot of different variables that exist out there, even if like one specific thing. Because I don't think anyone really is like, well, I want to do this, I want to live here, I want to have this, I want to do that, and is able to accomplish some of those things. But I think and hope that most people can get pretty close in whatever aspect that it is. But yeah, you really just have to put your mind to it. You have to experiment. You have to, learn as you go, regardless if you've been on that path for so long, or you want to adapt, or, try something different.
Yeah. My, my brother was, he's been working in the in trade industry for, he just turned 46 on Tuesday. So he's 46. So he's been working in trade since he was 18, but he pretty much knew. He's very, and I always try to compliment tradespeople being very quick problem solvers, because they have a potential sale in front of them, but they also have to be kind of quick and have a a quick analysis on that thing to make sure the billable hours are fair and all that type of thing. But so they're kind of salesperson on top of mechanic, right? Or salesperson on top of insert trade here. But again, he's one of those people who knew that he kind of wanted to do that since he was young. Like his our dad was and he was in the military. Then he was kind of just in and out of different like kind of corporate level jobs within the hospital system down in Detroit. So he was always kind of intrigued by things like sorry, there's a light. What's going on? Yeah, he knew what he wanted to do from a long time. He's always been tinkering. Like he went to high school and they still offered shop class, and he's always interested in that and woodworking, and always very handy. So even if it's something that I need help with that maybe seem a little bit more mechanical, he's always down to help. But again, he knew what he wanted to do. My sister went to college for, I think, just general liberal arts education, OCC. She went for a couple of years. Then she did a lot of waitressing. Then eventually she went to massage school when she was 24, 25. And she's going to turn 45 this year. So again, kind of 20 years. So, both my siblings knew what they wanted to do from a maybe younger age than I did. Me being we'll call it, kind of stereotypical youngest child where they didn't really have any sense of direction. They had felt no pressure because, their older siblings kind of knew it. But yeah, I floundered a bit. But luckily I was starting nursing school while I met my wife when I was 25, and pandemic happened, and I just decided I didn't want to do that anymore. I kind of knew how underappreciated nurses were already, and there's a lot of fight between the local hospital and a nursing union. So I don't want to be like the person hindsight 2020. I'm glad that I did that. It wasn't for me. I just didn't have the drive to do it. I was kind of just more doing it to be like, this is a good paying job. I can get this done in a couple of years. I'll figure out something then. But it just felt like another dead end that I didn't want to commit to. And even the whole reason I even got onto what a boot camp was because it was I was doom scrolling through Facebook after I got laid off the first time, and there was a advertisement for a Michigan State University data analyst boot camp, and all the things that they were, or that job would entail, was something that I had already kind of done on a day-to-day. Obviously I didn't have like the advanced maybe data analytical skills that they were looking for if I were to look for a job, but if I wanted to do a boot camp, long story short, I didn't even end up doing one for another 6 months, and that was a coding boot camp. And I initially started off doing back end, but then I switched to the front end kind of halfway through my pre-course. So again, even on something like that, I didn't even know what I wanted to do. And to be honest, I'm even transitioning to more of an administrator role than an actual coder. So it's like, 6, 7, right? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure things out. I'm doing a podcast and, with the basis of what are we doing? And we're still trying to figure things out. So I think on a broader scale, even the experts don't even have, and I call myself an expert with an eye roll, but, we're still figuring things out. It's the game of life.
Yeah, well said. I don't know why I just got hit with a rush of fatigue. So we could probably leave it there unless you have anything else you wanted to touch on.
No, I'm good, man. Just kind of going to get that low ran out.
Gotcha. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for listening.